everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hines, and welcome to another episode of Coast to Coast Connections this time. We're heading down to the coast of New Zealand to connect with that Kiwi fella who's been running the entire width of Canada for the last 10 months. We finally caught up with him, chased him back down in New Zealand, and he's here to tell us about his epic tale. This is a man who puts the man in humanity. He puts the kind in humankind. He did this entirely to raise money for little kids with cancer and to cheer up their lives along the way. Please welcome from New Zealand, Mr. Jonathan Nabbs.
Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome, John. It was very hard to track you down because you're a man on the move.
Yeah, I haven't really stopped. I've sort of finished the Canada run and right on to a new project that I'm preparing for. So yeah, it's great to be able to sit down and connect with you.
Thank you. And as we're going to learn, Canada Run was just phase one of this. There's an exciting phase two happening, which we didn't know about until a few weeks ago. And we'll share that with the viewers too, how they can continue to support your efforts to help kids with cancer. Right now, John, I just want to talk about your inspiration for this trip and how you came to do this run. And let's talk about your parents and the tragedy that actually led you to this, and the inspiration from Terry Fox as well.
Yeah, that's right. Those are really the two key things that caused this idea to come to fruition. So my folks, I lost my dad to skin cancer in 2020, which was just before lockdown started here in New Zealand. That was in January that he passed away. And then while we were in lockdown, I was locking down with my mum, and we would get up every morning and make our little sheet of paper, make our plan for the day and share it with each other just to try and give some structure to our day throughout that lockdown time, which was also disorienting. And about 2 or 3 weeks into that process, she had this stomach pain that just wouldn't go away, and it just kept getting worse and worse. It was a very tough lady, my mum. If she ever said anything was sore, you knew it was very, very, very sore. And she started complaining about this stomach pain. And before we were out of lockdown, she had taken herself to A&E to get it checked, and that turned out that was bowel cancer. And she fought that valiantly, but she passed away. She passed away about 12 months after that point, and so that was in 2021. And it just the loss of both of my parents, and then also this other friend who I heard of around the same time, a couple of months later actually, was a 34-year-old, and she had 2 children under the age of 4, and she was healthy as, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal brain cancer. She had 4 months to live, and all of this it just resulted in this moment of clarity for me, like none I've ever had before. Yeah, it just resulted in this very simple realization for me that life's for living, and I need to go. And if I wanted, I've always loved the idea of these big adventures and seeing the world, and to do so under my own steam, sort of foot powered or perhaps biking or something like that. And the other thing that came to mind was the memory of Terry Fox, who I first heard about through my girlfriend when I was in college here in New Zealand about 12 years ago. She was actually Canadian. She was from Ottawa. And through my time with her, I was introduced to the Terry Fox's journey. And I just remember how moving it was to see what he did, but probably more so the spirit in which he did it. Just not wanting huge sponsors to come on board. I remember there's this lovely video from the Terry Fox Foundation where they talk about the whole journey, and I think I read or saw somewhere that towards after Toronto, when his journey started picking up a lot of steam, he expressed a concern that while the media was great and the PR, the fundraising was going through the roof, he expressed a concern that the hype was causing people to forget about the real core of it, which alongside fundraising was actually just the care and the desire, the actual people there in the wards that were suffering, and that the hype can sort of cause people to forget that. And I thought that was just such a right way to look at things, and it was very moving for me, and absolutely resulted in why I probably chose Canada specifically to come and try and run across.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're so glad that you did, Jon, and we're so proud of you. And can we just express, I'm really sorry for the loss of both your parents. That's a very, very difficult thing to go through, to lose them both in such a short period of time. So my heart goes out to you in this burden that you had to carry as you ran across the country. But you made them very, very proud, Jon. And you made us all very proud too. Let's head back to day one, back in St. John's, Newfoundland, back May 2nd of 2023. You're standing next to the Terry Fox statue, and you're reading the Terry Fox Monument, and you're having this lovely, poignant moment with FaceTiming some of your friends in New Zealand. And it's just you, there's nobody else around, you're with your friends on the phone. And tell us about that. And then you picked up a stone, which I thought was beautiful. Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, that was a fantastic, special day. Newfoundland is just an outstanding place, and St. John's, it feels like the far-flung corners of the world when you're there, and you're in the cold North Atlantic. The place has so much spirit, all the buildings and just the people. It's wonderful, and then in this place to also see this statue of Terry Fox, just to think from how far out he began his run. I remember the first time I came over the little hill, and then you see his statue down by the water. It was so surreal to see that. It's so moving, and it was neat. At that point in the run, there wasn't a lot of the fundraising success that it later had, but also there wasn't a lot of the attention in the social media area and stuff. So I had the beautiful sort of quietness and the ability to just have a slow moment by myself, just with that statue in that beautiful place, that special place, and just take it in. It was one of the more sort of impactful and memorable moments of the entire journey, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And then from the Terry Fox Monument, you kneel down and picked up a stone, Jon, for your mom and dad.
Yeah, I hope I hope people wouldn't mind, but I picked up a little stone from Terry's foot, and I thought, sort of to symbolise, for mum and dad, and that I would aim to take it all the way to the other side of the country and leave it at the foot of the Terry Fox statue there in Victoria, BC.
I did leave a message for the Mayor of St. John's, Danny Green, and he says it's okay, you can keep that stone with his best wishes.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go, Jon. Little gift from Canada. And in that spirit, then you set off on your run, which took you 10 months, which took you through the entire width of Canada, 7,351 kilometers, I believe it was, through some of the worst weather Canada has ever experienced, through some of the worst heat, some of the worst wildfires, and the coldest Canadian winter in 52 years. You were running through the prairies in up to minus 53, well, you were inside during those days, but minus 20 to minus 30, you were plowing through the prairies and over the Rockies. So on behalf of all Canadians, the one question that we have, Jon, is how did you not freeze your kiwis off? That is some cold.
Yeah, and before I had come to Canada, the coldest, before I left New Zealand, the coldest temperature I had ever felt was -5.
Wow.
And to see these wonderful Canadian geographies and then the everything that the Canadian winter and it has to offer. I saw it as something to be taken very seriously and respected, and we have a the way we are raised here in New Zealand is with a huge respect for Mother Nature and her power and her might, and things can change pretty quickly here in New Zealand and become quite dangerous, especially if you're in the mountains. So.
And Jon, I just want to add that so viewers know, you did this run, this 10-month, 7,000-kilometer run, solo and unassisted with just your cart, who you named Shania, after an iconic Canadian, Shania Twain.
Yes, that's right. It was, strictly speaking, it was solo and unassisted. It was just pushing my baby stroller, Shania, and that had my sleeping bag, my tent, my food, my clothes, my electronics, my electrolytes, everything for the journey. Although, and you're right, it was named Shania after Shania Twain, and the reason for doing so was, must admit, pretty presumptive. But when I was at the start in St. John's, Newfoundland, I thought if I named her Shania, I wanted it to have a Canadian connection, obviously, and I thought if I named her Shania, then it would mean that perhaps when you get to Victoria, BC at the finish, you could justify singing the opening lines to "You're Still the One."
Yeah, looks like we made it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you did, Jon. You made it. You made it all the way across. And Shania Twain's Foundation actually contributed some things to your silent auction that you had online. So good on Shania. It looks like she made it too.
Yes, she made it big time. She donated signed copies of handwritten lyrics to the song "You're Still the One."
Oh,
it's fantastic.
Now, Jon, you were running, and I think you went through 7 pairs of running shoes during this time. And we've got a photo of one of them that you actually duct tape. You were running across Canada in the winter with duct taped runners, for goodness sake. You are something else.
Yeah, I think anyone would have done it. In that same situation, it's just whatever works. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was coming through. I was around Revelstoke, where my shoes just started to split out the side. My toes were hanging out, and the sole was separating from the canvas on top. And trying to run marathons like that was giving all sorts of different rubbing problems for my feet. And so yeah, a good amount of duct tape did the job, got me through.
And you were also on speed dial to your friend Andy, who's a physio, to help you with any injury prevention and to keep you healthy and running. Did you have many down days actually where you had to stop because of injury?
Yeah, because of injury, I did. I remember in Nicolette in Quebec, I had to take 2 days because I strained my quadricep.
That was probably, Jon, if you were in Quebec, it was probably so you could have a couple extra days of poutine.
Yeah, oh my goodness. That Kamouraska region from like Rivière-du-Loup down to Quebec City, that is something else. It is so charming. I could have stayed there forever.
Jon, not all heroes wear capes, but clearly you did. Tell us how the Superman cape came into factor here in connection with the kids that you were running for.
Yeah, so the Superman cape was an idea after visiting CHEO in Ottawa, which is the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. It just, going in there reminded me how important it is through that time of when someone in your family is facing a diagnosis, just how important it is to continue to try and find moments of joy or normality, and even perhaps something a little bit closely resembling relief if you can. Mm-hmm. And easier said than done, obviously, but that resulted in this idea to do something extra. And there's this fantastic British runner adventurer who was actually the first person to run across Canada solo, unsupported. There's only been 5 now, and he was the first. He did it about 10 years ago. His name's Jamie McDonald, fantastic human being, and he's actually been really supportive on this journey. But he he did it in a Flash costume, and I messaged Jamie. I said, "What do you think about this? If I chuck on a Superman costume just to try and raise spirits with these hospital visits I'm doing?" And he was so obliging, and the rest is history. When I got to Oshawa in the GTA, I picked it up from Spirit Halloween and ran the next 5,000 kilometers with that, and I even managed to wash it a few times.
That's a super undertaking in itself when you're camping and the snowbanks on each side of the road. So good for you. And it was Childhood Cancer Canada that you were helping to raise funds for, and also the Child Cancer Charity in New Zealand. What was the name of that one, John?
It's the Child Cancer Foundation of New Zealand. That's the official name.
Thank you. And your goal was to raise how much?
$60,000.
Mm-hmm. And how much did you raise, Jonathan Nabbs?
125,000 New Zealand dollars, 100,000 Canadian dollars.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. And running across the prairies was actually the hardest part of this journey for you, wasn't it, John? You had the polar vortex bearing down on you. You had wildfires. You had just that vast expanse. And tell us how that was for you.
Yeah, it was very difficult. So I got to the Ontario-Manitoba border on I think it was the 18th of November. So it was already a race against time, a race against the polar vortex. And yeah, it was, what a race it was. Like I lost that race. By the time I got to in the middle of Saskatchewan, I was running through snow. Like quite high snow. There was one day around Wapella, Saskatchewan, where we had the plows couldn't come. One plow had come and it had gone off the road, so they had just called them off. Trucks were still trying to continue. We had trucks jackknifing. We had truckers all over the place outside their rigs trying to make sure everything's okay before they carry on. I was running past these guys in a near blizzard sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, there was that, and then as you mentioned earlier, by the time I got to Calgary, we saw the real depths of that polar vortex around the 10th of January. Mm-hmm. We had minus 53 degrees when I came through Calgary.
And John, we heard that you actually warmed up in Calgary at a Calgary Flames game. You saw your first NHL hockey game.
Yes, what a beautiful moment that was. So the Calgary Flames came to the party big time. They helped organise tickets, and they were unbelievable tickets. They were right by down where the Zamboni comes out, front row, touching the glass. And for a first NHL experience, it was fantastic. They donated a jersey. It was like the official hockey night, cancer night, Hockey Fights Canada, Hockey Fights Cancer, purple warm-up jersey from last year, and they donated one of those to the cause. And then it was the Flames against the Sens at the Saddle Dome. They did a big shout out on the big screen in front of 18,000 people to help get more donations. It was unbelievable. And in that moment, to sit there and think, man, to think back to St. John's, Newfoundland, when I arrived at this country not knowing anybody. I didn't even know any New Zealanders that lived in Canada. I knew not a soul. And then to fast forward to that moment at the Saddle Dome, it certainly choked me up a bit.
Aw, that's so special. And as you crossed this vast country, John, you stopped and talked to kids at schools. You went to hospitals to visit children who were in cancer wards. You did a lot of good across this country and raised a lot of spirits for people and families suffering with this horrible, horrible disease. But you took time out from your running to do this, and there's a lot of school kids here who will never forget meeting Superman showing up in their classroom. And a lot of these kids did fundraising for you. There was bake sales, they were doing running, they were making keychains, they were helping John in all kinds of little and big ways across the country.
Yeah, and that was so important for me. Like in terms of when I think about, people ask, were there ever any days where you felt, like you wanted to quit, coming across the prairies or something? And I'm so surprised that the my answer is no. And I'm not just trying to sound like, tough now that I've finished it. Like the genuine, I never, that was the case. And I really put that down to those moments, those interactions with kids, because then it was seeing that this run, which at times could be very, very lonely, was bringing this joy and this enthusiasm and this light to kids. And it's and to see that they would go to the extent to make these posters or to make these keychains, as you say, it gave me all the drive in the world.
Wonderful. You went across the Rockies in one of the coldest, snowiest winters in Canada, over the Rockies, where there's avalanche control going on, and there was Jonathan Nabbs. Over the Rockies, over the Coquihalla Summit, and on the home stretch to Vancouver, to visit kids at the Children's Hospital there. And after you passed through the Coquihalla, we had the worst blizzard there in forever, and you missed it just by a couple of days. But how did your spirit endure this? Because you were under conditions that most of us never ever have to go through. Where do you get this spiritual fortitude to do this, Jon?
Service to others. That's exactly what it is. It was knowing that this thing was serving other people and not just raising funds, but also raising spirits, putting smiles on faces. It makes it gives it meaning. Yeah. And when you have that, you can get through a lot.
You can.
I'm getting teary-eyed just reflecting on some of these things you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting teary-eyed just watching you being teary-eyed. Now, Jon, you're on to phase 2 here. We just have a few minutes left, but you are starting phase 2 of this run. Tell us what you're doing.
I'm bringing the Superman suit, and I'm going down to the southernmost point of New Zealand, a tiny historic town called Bluff. I'm going to run the length of New Zealand in the Superman suit and it's in conjunction with the Child Cancer Foundation of New Zealand, organising some days to stop and visit with kids along the way, and hopefully you're going to try and have like a Superman or a superhero themed visit in some of the cities if we can. And run the length of New Zealand, 80 kilometres per day is the goal now, 2,034 kilometres. It's much smaller than Canada. It's even smaller than Ontario. It's only 2,034 kids. And along the way, also trying to break the Guinness World Record for running the length of New Zealand.
Jonathan Nabbs, that is incredible. Long may you run, my friend. I mean, this is incredible. And we'll be able to watch you on your YouTube channel. You'll have a tracker there. We can look at you and your beautiful country, follow your run. I think you said 26 days. You're going
26 and a half, finishing on 27. Yeah.
Fantastic. And raising more money for these incredible charities and making such a difference in the lives of others. You truly are an earth angel, sir. And the world needs more Jonathan Nabbs. And we just want to thank you for coming to our country, spreading all this love and enthusiasm and humility. You're a very humble soul. And it's just really, really nice to meet people like you and amplify your story. Your parents would be so proud of you, Jon.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome. Take us back to St. John's. Let's end on a funny moment here. There was an elderly British gentleman in the pub the night before you went, and he asked what you were doing, and you said,
"Yeah, am I able to use expletives?"
Yeah. You're allowed to say "fook."
Okay.
Like he did.
Okay. Yeah, so I was in the pub. I think it was called the Ship in St. John's, and I was just going down for one beer in this fantastic, lively city before going out and starting this run. And yeah, spoke to an elderly British gentleman, just having a chat about things. And he said, you know, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm here to run across the country. And he sort of did a bit of a double take. He's like, what do you mean, run across Newfoundland? I was like, no, run to Victoria, BC. And he says, that is an effing long way. He was pretty shocked, and like his face just dropped. And yeah, it was my first. I had kept it pretty close to my chest up until that point. I hadn't really told a whole bunch of people because it was this fragile little dream. But you know, it was pretty real by the time I was there, and so yeah, I just said it to him quite casually, and yeah, just knocked his socks off. It was hilarious.
Just one of the many characters that you met along the way. And I think there's also a book in your future. You're going to be chronicling this, and we'll have you back on the show when you do your book tour in Canada, Jon. Any closing thoughts for you? We just have a few seconds left here.
I'd just like to extend my gratitude to Canada. You know, with that lovely Canadian reserve that everybody there seems to have, or you know, largely in general. I think Canadians often don't realise how great they are, and how beautiful some of the cultural values of the country really are. And I just, not only myself but other New Zealanders that have followed the journey and have seen the way that that Canadians showed up to support this run and to support this smelly Kiwi man running across their country. Just Canada and Canadians should be so very proud.
Thank you, Jon. Very, very nice. We'll be watching you as you run through New Zealand. We'll be supporting you through that section as well. And we wish you all the best on that run. Clear sailing, no injuries, and just angel wings on your feet, sir.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to follow Jon on his YouTube channel. You can track where he is and contribute to this amazing cause to make lives easier for kids with cancer and their families. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Coast Connections.